Hello, everybody, and welcome back to our Construction Builder Series, part 15. I can't believe we're already at 15. I am Danielle Palloschi-Browne. I am an investor and investor agent, and I specialize in working with developers and contractors, much like my dear friend and co-host, Raj Tamang, owner of Green Valley Custom Builders, and he is an engineer. So we're here weekly to talk to you. We're finishing up our series on how to build a house all the way from the foundation to the roof, everything in between. And now we are finishing up our final part today, which is outdoor spaces and really enhancing the landscaping and usability of the outside of your house. So I cannot believe it, Raj, but we are at the end today for this series, which is
we're rocking, yeah.
So we've built the whole house, and then so this is our third part of just the outdoor series that we've been talking about. So we've talked about landscaping, water and storm mitigation, different types of trees and things. Now we're talking about the really fun stuff, in my opinion, and we've kind of dabbled on this in the last week or so. But usable living cooking spaces. So basically taking your house and making outdoor versions of those things and the different types of spaces you could be adding to your construction on your flip or your new construction home to really add value. What we think really does add value and what is kind of like an extra if you enjoy it, but may not actually get you the money that you think if you're, looking to invest and build yourself. So let's start with like I've been dying to talk about it, so why don't we just start with like outdoor kitchens? I know we have a different order, but I love to cook. I'm Italian and Puerto Rican and Irish, and these are cultures that cook a lot of food for a lot of people. Right? And I'm from New York, so outdoor kitchens I think have been one of the biggest trends in the last 5 to 10 years. Right? It's not just about having a patio with like a grill on it anymore. Now it's, hey, I want like some side burners and a refrigerator, like a mini fridge and maybe an ice maker and some outlets and like granite. People are really building like full size functional outdoor kitchens. And I think it's really cool. What are you seeing in some of the most common trends in outdoor kitchens that you've been building right now?
Yeah. Like you said, a lot of, especially recently now, a lot of people are working from home. So they are start focusing on doing outdoor living. Outdoor kitchen is very, that's definitely part of it. And that's what all the new construction we do. We provide this gas, natural gas, if there is, hook up on the back. So, your grill or whatever you have, you can connect it to the main gas line directly. That's what I've done in my house. And to be honest with you, because so with the grill, or you can have even like cook, or in my house in Amazon, actually I found it. This is 8-foot big cooktop. You can find it like metal cooktop, like you find it you do in a restaurant. But thing is, you just then I connected that to the gas directly to the house. So it's just like a cooking in your range in the cooktop in the house inside. You just turn it on, turn it off, you heat up. It's so clean. You clean it. You can clean it. It's so great. It's so great for us. We don't cook a lot, but every time I get a chance to cook, I cook outside.
Yeah, why not? You totally take advantage of that.
Yeah. So a lot of things people are actually asking for this type of outdoor cooking and outdoor living, and like I said. And even if they don't have a budget, they always have a planning for next couple of years to finish those projects along with the house,
Yep. For sure. And I think having that like outdoor range, if you will, like the cooking top range, what's nice about that is like what happens when you only have like a grill outside and then you have to cook other items for your meal inside is that means like people aren't all together and it gets kind of complicated. It's really nice to have all of that in one space. Plus, besides just the functionality, it's really attractive to have those cooking spaces there, and it creates really nice seating areas for guests too, because they can sit with you while you're cooking, just like at a kitchen island, right? It's the same idea, but you're just putting that outside. And we live in a place where only about 3 months of the year is it too cold to be sitting outside. Like maybe 4 months, most of the year in Northern Virginia, DC area, it's nice enough to sit outside and cook. Or any dine al fresco. So it's definitely something, in my opinion, that adds a lot of value, and it doesn't have to be overly expensive, because it's not, you could just pick what is the most effective and cost effective for you. Like sometimes just having that countertop space and building in your grill is great. But if you want to add in other features like a mini wet bar or ice maker, things like that, I've seen people really go for it with like a dishwasher out there. And I don't know if you need all of that, but like it, depending on what you're doing. And if you host a lot, that might be a huge asset for you.
It is. I've seen it. People have a full kitchen outdoor, full kitchen,
Yeah.
What that means, including dishwasher, freeze, wine cooler, everything you have inside house is outside. But the same thing you say, if you're cooking, yeah, exactly. If you're cooking, you don't want to cook in and out, running around back and forth, inside house, outside house. It depends how much of a backyard you have. But people are definitely thinking about this type of features in the house. And fireplace, for example, outdoor fireplace, and the fire pit. Even if they can't do fireplace, they can do fire pit easy. You can build it yourself. You can go to Home Depot, get the cement block, and put a fire pit. It's very good way
easy to do.
It's really easy to do it, and it's very cool. And a lot of things there. Nowadays, Home Depot and a lot of those vendors have focused on DIY, doing yourself, right? So they have so many different small videos, and you can actually get those information free about doing things yourself, including landscape and planter boxes. So people understand that, not just us but all the people in this industry. I think they understand the importance of having outdoor living. So I always now, like I said, especially now, a lot of people are working from home. This is very important, having outdoor living. So always we talk about it, we give them options. And now, people, they're watching HDTV, YouTube, that they have all kind of cool ideas. They're sharing, they go to their friend's house. They're always asking, some of the people, they're asking some of the idea. I never heard it before because they're watching too much,
Yeah, get crazy. I've seen outdoor living area setups like on patios, or like even in these outdoor kitchen or bar or gazebo areas where there's like seating and cooking and lounging all happening at the same time. Outdoor televisions, I think, have made a huge, like, people love to have a TV outside. So you could be outside with your family, you could be cooking outside, you can have enough space outside. Especially in like the pandemic, I think these things are not going to go away as like not just trends, but I think more people enjoy being outside even more. So that's been a really cool thing to see. So outdoor televisions, and really you can just plan for that. Like having places where Wi-Fi, routers, and just fiber optic cable. It's not very hard when you're planning the house to just plan for that. And you can add it on later, but it doesn't really cost any more money to run and have the things available for you there. So that's something that a lot of people might want to consider when building a new construction home, or if you're doing a major renovation on something and you have to run those cables throughout the house, why don't you just put a hookup over there? And it actually is a selling feature, kind of like adding like the hookup, or at least the electrical component into a garage for like an electric vehicle. It's little things like that I think actually really add to the perceived value of a property when like especially high-end buyers are looking at things. It just looks like you've thought a little bit more. It doesn't necessarily cost very much more, but you've really considered what you need to do.
You're talking about outdoor television. There's a house in McLean. They listed like 3 or 4 days ago.
Yeah.
It's listed for 22 million, of course. Wow. And they have one of the features they listed here is a 250 inch outdoor television. So that's one of the features they listed, 250 inch outdoor television.
It's a movie screen.
Huh?
It's a movie screen.
Yeah.
It's on the wall.
It's a $22 million listed. I'm looking at it, and it's a 3.8 acre lot in McLean. Of course, if you have that that kind of lot, of course, it's already expensive. Yeah, I wish I could show you. I'm looking at Gila now, but people are really getting into this outdoor living. Especially houses like that. They have too much money to spend outside the house, not just inside. Um,
Yeah.
but people are like when they are sitting outside, they just want to have televisions. Also, that's become part of it. Gazebo, so that any type of covered structures, patios, screen ports, covered ports. One thing, the difference I want to tell you, there's a few things we have to remember. From design perspective, if it's a covered porch, a screen porch is about the same because you just have a screen. But if you have sunroom, the difference is sunroom is enclosed. So it's a heated space, right? Three season space, heated space. But with the sunroom, what they want is enclosed, heated space, but they want a lot of windows, right? So that you have sun coming from all three sides of the sunroom. But when you have a screen porch, you don't, right? It's all open outside, but at least you have a screen. But from design perspective, you have to remember when you have a glasses, you have to remember when there's a wind, the glasses are blocking the wind, right? Means the wind is blocked by these glasses in sunroom. So your design is different. So I just give an example of the design and construction cost of a sunroom could be much higher than your covered porch, because covered porch or screen porch, you have to remember when wind is moving, it doesn't block. It's just going through it.
Yeah, because it's
have a roof,
screen.
like a gazebo, okay?
Yeah.
The construction is a lot cheaper, but when you do windows, not just a window for the sunroom, bigger sunroom, you have to think about lateral stability of the structure and the wind.
Yeah.
So you have to provide some steel portal frame or wall bracing. That may be additional cost, and that's a part of the design. So now a lot of people, what they are doing, instead of doing sunroom, they do covered porch. So you have a covered porch, your deck. It's just a transition. You can go outside if it's raining, too hot, too hot. You can just come inside the covered porch, right? At least you have something to cover your head up.
Well, and you get the nice breeze. Plus, I've seen a lot of people add electric heaters to covered spaces too. So you could use it in the fall and in the early spring. And it really means you could use it for like 8 or 9 months a year here. You really can, like, with the exception of the deep winter, like right now, which is kind of, it's not typically this cold here. This has been a little weird for us. But yeah, you can use those spaces then most of the year and not have to worry about some of the structural components for like wind bracing and things like that if you did the screened porch.
Exactly. Except it's raining, maybe it's not a good idea or high wind. But like you said, nowadays a very affordable electric, your heater on the ceiling, and even see fireplace, outdoor fireplace, all that you can make use of it, and you still use the outside space. Not everybody, to be honest, not everybody like the sunroom because of the window. It feels like you're enclosed. You don't feel like you're open, especially if you have on the back, you have some privacy with the trees. Unless you are looking at neighbor's house, that's a different story. But if it is literal greenery and privacy, you want to have open space than enclosed with glasses or whatever it is.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And from a heating and cooling perspective, a sunroom, while they're gorgeous and they have tons of light, like it could still be a challenge in the summer when you have really strong sun and you're trying to keep the space cool. And depending on how much it's attached to like your other homes, like if it's really leading into your main living room, like cooling could be a little bit more of a challenge, or you should expect to spend a little bit more on electricity to run your system a little harder. And same thing in the winter. It might be a little cooler because like windows can insulate as much as windows can insulate, especially windows that size. So it's something to consider. Screen and porch, really, I guess, unless you're out there and you're running maybe the electrical heater or maybe a fan, you don't really have to worry about like extreme add-ins and in terms of utility usage. It's not really going to affect anything much higher or lower, at least that I've seen. So with screened in porches too, like you're really looking at like for the flooring or what the porch part, if you will, you're really looking at just like your standard decking materials you can get away with, but you could also use things like Trex. So right now with the cost of wood, and we're in January of 2022, so whenever anyone's watching this video for reference point, what are you seeing in terms of wood prices? And we've mentioned this, I think, a lot in the last like few months as we've filmed this. Have you seen any positive movement in like wood and especially decking materials going up or down? Or how do you feel about like pressure treated wood now versus Trex in terms of pricing? Like from what I've seen, they're not as far apart as they used to be. And well, Trex is more expensive, and Trex is a brand. It's not like the only brand, like whatever composite wood. I'm not seeing it being drastically different like it used to be. Like 4 years ago, the difference between wood and Trex was like very significant. Now I feel like it's not as significant. But what do you think?
Yeah. So, a few months ago when we spoke about this, the cost of material, especially wood, it had started coming down. We're hoping it will keep going down and go to the level it used to be, but that would never happen. Now it's going up again. Okay, unfortunately, it's just crazy.
Don't tell me that, Raj.
I know. I wish that we have a better news, but it's not really helping. So not just any type of material, composite material or LVLs or PSLs, anything is more expensive, right? So, but the good thing about composite materials is you can come up with different colors, different design, different textures, and it's more, and also it's long lasting. But wood pressure treated, it doesn't matter. After 5, 10, 12 years, you're supposed to replace in a deck. Maximum 20 years a deck is supposed to replace. I don't know if I mentioned to this before. In America, 80% of the structural failure happens in a house. The structural failure of a house, the component of a house, the deck, 80%. Because this is what happened. Yes, because you have to remember. You have to remember people don't pay attention to the deck outside, but it's wood. It's like you just nail it, screw it. You have a hangers, metal hangers. It's corroded, at the 14 gauge, 16 gauge. Especially if your house is close to water, salt water corrodes all those screws and connectors easily. So you don't even pay attention. And I've not really seen people like actually replacing the deck after 15, 20 years. And they're keeping it. And the problem is the connections or may be already failing. Maybe deck is okay, but the connection, which you are not really looking at, especially the low deck, you can't really go underneath and see how the connections are. And that's where the failing is. Usually happens at the interface of house and a deck as a laser board. Exactly, that's the point. That's almost like 90% of the failure is that laser board connections. So from the design perspective, when I build a new house, if you have a more than 12 feet of a span of a deck, I do not connect the deck into the laser board. I connect it just for lateral so that it doesn't move, but I provide the support or beam and footings and columns next to the house so that your deck is independently supported structurally.
Then the house, so it doesn't, if it were to fail, we're not to pull anything on the house.
Exactly. So you will still have a laser board. So you are not really depending on a laser board connections to support the part of the deck. You connect it so it doesn't move, but you do it. So a lot of people, they don't do it. And some of the things I said before, if you screw versus a lot of people, they don't like a screw, right? Instead of through balls. So you have to remember the screw, whatever it is screw. Over time, people are walking because when it's movement, the screw becomes loose, right? That's obvious after many years. But that's why, if possible, and when I build a new house, and if there's a deck, I always connect the laser board to the house with through bolts. Because you have a bolt from outside and inside you have a nut. So even if it's loose, it's not going to come off. The screw is can come off, right?
Yep.
But the problem is when house is already built and let's say basement is finished and you're trying to build a new deck, you can't go. You could, but maybe it's too much work or too expensive. Go inside the house, open up the drywall, and install those through walls and nuts from inside. You know what I'm saying? Nobody does that. So they use screws. Um, so all this reason, like I said, is, maybe 15, 20 years, you may want to replace the deck. Look at it, not just the deck. Look at the hanger connections. Make sure it's not corroded, or
yeah, that's one to know.
There's one topic I was thinking maybe down the road we can talk about constructing or designing a deck.
Yes,
in the proper way.
There's a lot that comes into it. It's not just the materials. It's not just the shape. It's also what size deck can your lot account for, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Like how big, what materials should you use? I would love to talk about that. I think that would be great.
Yeah, I have maybe we can talk about it. I can share some photos and some of the the slides I have for the deck. Because there's some Home Depot, there's some of the vendors, they actually have a course on deck construction. You can go. We don't want to go to all. Yeah, they do. If you go to Simpson, which is one of the largest connector producing company, manufacturing company in the US, they have an actually separate catalog for deck construction.
Wow.
Because like I say, a lot of people, they are not paying attention about the deck. And I can tell you, 99% of the deck we build here is not, because it's a little bit, sometimes they feel overkill. I'm not saying not complying with the code, but they don't pay attention as much as they would for the house. They say, hey, this is just a deck, outside the house. It's okay, But if you want to do proper way, it may be a little bit more expensive, but I think it's more sturdier. It looks better too. So
yeah. Well, and some of those other materials, like doing Trex or the non-pressure treated wood materials, like fabricated materials, they really have like an indefinite life to them. Like you're not going to have to replace that necessarily in 20 years. Like a Trex deck can last for an extraordinarily long time. So it's something to consider. While it might be a bit more expensive, in 20 years to replace a whole deck, like I wonder what decks cost 20 years ago. And now the cost of putting in a deck now, especially with all these wood price increases, the value of that, of not having to replace that in just 20 years, it could be very substantial versus like what you pay now and what decks will in another 20 years cost. Yeah. So it's definitely something to consider when looking at that. Okay, so
then also talking about composite, there are different type of manufacturer. Like for give you an example, more prominent in US is Trex, and there's TimberTech. Trex is definitely a little bit more expensive than TimberTech, but that's what I'm saying. So you don't really have to go Trex. I'm not against the Trex. And
it's just one brand that I think has become like the Google of composite deck. Like it was one of the first ones to really come out, and it's been a long time, and they've made like a great brand for themselves, but they're by no means the only brand out there. And now there are more cost-effective options than Trex branded composite decking. So you could definitely look into those as options too.
Yeah. So like I said, different colors, different textures. Wood, you have to stand, maybe you have to stand every year. But here, Trex usually once
pressure wash.
Exactly.
Resealing.
But I would definitely say, depending on your budget, consider having a Trex. And when you have a Trex, then you also have the railing, also Trex. You don't have wood rails. I mean, I've seen people done it, but at least if you have a limited budget, you can still do wood rails, right? And floor, at least do Trex, so that you don't have to replace it. And one of the things I realized, I don't know if you have the wood deck, but I had it on my old house. And after years, the smaller chips of the wood start coming up. And because then if sometimes I'm just walking around without the shoes, inside the house,
you can't do that on like a regular wood deck.
Yes. That's something I realized. Even if it's a new deck, after a couple of years, you be careful when you go to the wood deck. So the small, especially you have two little kids that are running around. So that's something you always have to watch out. Yes.
For sure. Like on my house, we bought it and it has a wood deck on it. And we knew our goal for it was like, we're going to be replacing it. And we also kind of want to redesign the shape. So I'm very excited to do that conversation about designing a deck because it's very applicable to me. And my deck is probably about 15 years old. So we're getting to that point where we have absolutely noticed like, hey, we got a budget to replace this sooner rather than later. And we have a pretty large deck for it's probably, I don't know, like it's over 1,000 square foot of deck. Like there's quite a lot of deck because it wraps around a bunch of our, it's very big and it has planter boxes built in. Like it's got different types of awnings that are all attached to it. So like there's quite a lot with that. And when designing it, I would like to keep certain things. Like I really enjoy the planter boxes and we have like a jacuzzi in part of it that we don't use. And the jacuzzi is really old and we're never going to use that jacuzzi, but we'd like, it sticks out and like, we like the decking itself. So when we've been thinking about it, we're like, we really want to replace it with something that we're not going to have to power wash every year. We're not going to have to, they had painted it. Like it has like a textured waterproofing paint on it, but that sometimes chips. So we've been doing that. There's like a lot of maintenance to a deck. And while they can be really amazing, trying to make them, when designing them as an investor in particular, or when consulting buyers, you really want to talk to them about what is their threshold for maintenance. Because they may be looking at the price tag and like, oh, I'll deal with the wood deck. Like that's so much less expensive. You may want to point out the other expenses that come along with that, like annual restaining and power washing and sanding in some places. Like wood, over time, you've got to restand it. You have to restain it and polyurethane it and keep, there's just a lot of maintenance to it. The Trex and the composite decking, you just got to clean it. Like you don't have to do anything else and it's never going to splinter and that's it. So while the price might be more, you're not really going to have to pay little by little year after year, which also adds up to.
Overall, over a long time. And especially if you have 1,000 square of deck, then it's a lot of cost difference. But if it is standard deck, like say 12 feet by 20 feet, 10 feet by 18 feet, those are the smaller standard deck in the house. Those things, like I said, maybe it's worth spending a couple of $1,000 more for the Trex for long term, so you don't have to do it. But like I said, there are still different options out there. And also, like I said, outdoor living has been very important part of this whole design, construction, residential constructions now. But if you have any questions, just let us know. We'll be happy to. That's what I can think of now. But if anything else, just let us know.
Oh, I think there's one other small thing we can touch on. Patios. So if like you don't have a deck, there's patio spaces and other types of like stoned living spaces that you can create as well. When designing them, though, you do want to make sure that the area that it's covering is not going to be more than what your county allows for you to build out, the buildable square footage, and or for stormwater management, because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It can really, the product that you use to cover your grass, if you're like not a fan of having a big yard and you think, oh, I'll make my whole backyard concrete, you might not be able to do that. Like you really have to look into your county ordinances and you have to make sure that you can mitigate stormwater. And some of that is using like porous paver stones or things that allow for drainage. But you can make beautiful living spaces that include things like fire pit areas, which could be in grass, they could be on top of gravel. Like we have a gravel space that we turned into a fire pit area because the previous owner made a giant like retaining wall with gravel in it, but they had a trampoline on it, I guess, for their kids. And we obviously don't really care about having a trampoline, so we just made it into a fire pit area. That's us. But you could also do paver patio areas that could have like some Adirondack chairs or for grilling, part of those outdoor kitchens, or really just for lounging. Sunbathing, all that kind of stuff. And there's lots of materials to do that in. Besides paver stones that look like brick, you could do different types of rock, river rock, stone, slate. I'm missing stuff. I know there's a lot more options than that.
Exactly. Like, yeah, you're
Standard
right.
concrete.
So you can do concrete. There's different way. That's correct. Because when you have a deck, you have to think about it, especially storm water management. Deck, when it's raining, all the water can go under the deck. So the
Yeah.
requirements are not as stringent as a concrete patio. Concrete patio, they will treat like a house because like water in that area is completely run off. So you have to provide additional, management system in your premise, in your lot, right? So
Yep.
especially you have a quarter acre lot and a half acre lot in this area where that's what it is. So those things always add up. So people, what they are doing it nowadays, which I don't suggest, not supposed to do it, but people are doing anyway. So they build a house and they build a patio after they move in. So because what because if you have to get a permit for the patio, all the grading plan, there's a lot of calculation involved, right? It depends. So what people do is that they do it, but it's, I mean, if it's not big, so grading plan, civil engineer, it could be time consuming, it could be expensive too.
Yeah.
But in new construction, of course, we don't do it because we built it already, be part of the design and calculations involved. But you're right. So with a concrete patio, that also depends with the house, I would say topography, right? The ground. If it is,
Yeah.
let's say, typically house in this area is you have a full basement, and first floor and second floor. If Florida, Texas, there is no basement. Other parts of the country, but here, when you have a basement, if you have fully buried basement, then your deck usually is from the first floor coming off, usually from your living room or your kitchen, right? Breakfast room.
Mhm.
That's what the deck is. So, and I'm talking about fully buried basement. So instead of a deck, which is lower, maybe like 3-4 feet tall only, and people that can do concrete patio so that you can walk from the floor, from the kitchen or living room or family room, and go to the deck. It's a deck, you can do patio. But if it's too tall, let's say 6-7 foot tall, you can't build. If it is walkout basement, you can have a concrete patio on a first
Yeah.
floor level. But you can, but it becomes too expensive, right? You have to do all kind of like concrete structure. So people, what they do, if you have a walkout basement, you can build a regular deck
Mm-hmm.
at the first floor level, where you can
Mm-hmm.
access from first floor, living room, kitchen, family room, and from the deck you could go down to the patio. So it's like a step from from
Yeah.
a walkout basement. You can go to patio. From the patio, you can come up to the deck or covered porch. So you can just design in a way. Even the porch, covered porch, it could be uh, even the floor. Then, as you know, it could be waterproof so that they can actually people can live underneath. Especially if you
Yep.
walk out basement, it's going to add a little bit of cost. But again, then you all of a sudden you have a living space, usable space under the deck, and that could
Yep.
be patio. I've seen people done it, cover it in a nicely. You have a ceiling fan. All of a sudden, you have a two-level living space, open
Yeah.
space, right?
Oh yeah. And
That,
underneath, I've seen a lot of people screen it in.
yeah,
So
yeah,
now
they
you've got a
do.
little screened in, like patio, grotto kind of an area. And it's very private. And it's often not like, it's not an outdoor space that'll get a ton of sun, which some people really like because in Virginia, especially in like June, July, and August, it can be
Mhm.
brutally hot here. So it's a great other additional private option to utilize space that's like no one else would have used it anyway. So it's very cool to be able to do that. And usually it's just patio space under there, but they can look really nice.
Yeah, it does. Like I said, there's different type of patios you can do. Even the finishing for the patio on the ceiling, you can do like very nice, cool lighting. I've seen like
Yeah.
really color lighting. So you go outside, all of a sudden you have all this color like Christmas, and 12
Yep.
months a year, right?
Yeah.
There's so many different things you could do. Exactly. But for me personally, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's very important.
Well, Raj, we've gone over everything now. We officially have talked to you about all that we can share about the building construction and creation of building a home from scratch. And I hope you guys enjoyed this series. And Raj and I are going to be continuing. every week coming live here, as well as with Green Valley Academy, which is going to be a free community where you can learn about investing and developing, building, construction, everything like that. So we're going to share more information in the future on that, but wanted to let you know that. But every week we're going to now start a series on micro topics in construction and flipping. So we're going to talk about many things that are really important to think about when either developing a property or redeveloping a property and investing, and some tips and tricks. So if there's anything that you are personally interested in learning about, leave a comment and we can include that in our series in the upcoming months. But this has been great. I cannot believe we actually finally talked about the entire house. And I'm really excited to dive into these micro topics going forward. It's going to be a ton of useful information. I'm excited to share it.
It is. Yeah. Thank you so much. I'm excited.
Yes. Oh, me too. All right. So we'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.